Yo, I'm Brendan. Today, we're not talking about personal finance. We're talking about how to make consistently great videos. Now, you might watch the rest of my videos and think this guy's videos aren't that consistently great. But what I mean by that is a high quality, like a high production quality, a high deliverable quality to your audience, and doing that in the quickest amount of time possible in a very short time frame. How do we make that process easy? I just made a whole 3-hour-long Skillshare class about this. So I thought, look, I did all this work. I may as well give YouTube like the 10-minute Spark Notes, super quick version of it. If you want to take the whole class, by all means, go ahead and take the class. But I'll give you the 4 bullet points that are the main highlights of the class here just so you get the most value possible. The first thing that I do here in the place where I currently am with you is have a consistent setup. If you watch my videos, you'll notice that it's the same every time. Now, 4 or 5 years ago, it was different. I didn't have all this stuff hung up on the wall. I didn't have these lights. I didn't have this giant microphone in my face. But over time, I just switched from the previous setup to this setup, iterated for a little while, and then here we are. And the point isn't to give your audience necessarily the same exact backdrop every time, even though it's nice to be recognizable. The point is to make your life easier as the person who's making the videos. I have almost all of my lights on a Wise smart plug. Everything else I have in the studio is on permanent power. And so I come in here, I push one button, I turn on one switch, I turn on 4 other things here around where you can't actually see, and then boom, I'm ready to record. So it takes about 45 seconds to go from 0 to recording. And that includes using the teleprompter that I'm looking through right now. When you have to totally restart from the beginning every time you film to set up a camera and set up sound and hold a lav mic or figure out what the angle of the sun is gonna be once it passes by that tree and all this BS, it just takes too much time and energy and resetting every single time. So to make it fast, have a consistent setup. The overarching tip number 2 is to maintain consistency with the hardware that you use, with the camera, with the audio, with the lenses, all that kind of jazz. And even though you can't see it very easily here, unless I make a little quick video for you, here, let me show you. I've got 2 of everything. So I've got a camera back there that's recording everything that I'm doing right now. Then I also have the HDMI signal coming from that camera into a Ninja 5 video recorder. Then I've got 2 different microphones. So I've got a Shure SM7B microphone and a shotgun microphone, both recording into an external audio recorder here. What that means functionally for me is that I have 2 of everything, 2 audio, 2 video, 2 chances in case something goes wrong and a memory card stops working or some microphone blows up or gets disconnected or whatever. I'm not going to have to re-record a video. When you've decided to like make videos for a living or make videos very seriously, redundancy is a hugely handy thing to have. Also on the back of my camera, I've got a cooling fan so that it doesn't overheat. I've got a fan here in my studio so that I don't overheat, and it's on a remote control, so it's very handy, literally in my handy. And then once everything is recorded, I use a few different SSDs to keep everything super organized. Of course, it would be nice to be rich enough to pay for internal memory on a MacBook Pro, but everybody knows that's the most expensive way to pay for memory on any kind of digital storage device situation in the world because Apple has such a crazy markup on it. So because of that, I've got to resort to external SSDs. But when you have those pre-segmented into different SSDs, you can then very easily organize your video files. The overarching theme is to use the hardware to your advantage. It's not the most important thing to have the sharpest lens or the newest camera body or the sexiest, newest tech in some other way. The important thing is that whatever you're actually going to spend your hard-earned money on makes you more consistent. Then when it comes to planning and writing and scripting and figuring out what your videos are actually going to be about, having some kind of system I think is pivotal, and some old piece of note paper ripped out with some scribbles on it doesn't count as a system. You need some kind of reliable, digital, templated writing system that helps you remember the message that you want to portray in each of your videos. It can be a loose outline. You know, the template is not necessarily something that has to mandate word for word everything you're going to say in the whole video. It can. It's kind of what I do a lot of the time. But the point is you want to hit consistent deliverables for people. Whether I'm making a car channel video or a review of an axe, or if I'm talking about some kind of new investing product, I want to make sure that I deliver some kind of value to my audience. Now, I'm not the best at that by any means, but the people who are best at it are so busy doing that, they don't have time to make this kind of video for you. So I just want to give you whatever value I can in that way. The templating system that I use, I stole from 3 or 4 different kind of online YouTube video creating people. They all use Notion. And I also happen to use Notion. And I took elements of their video creation system and the things they remind themselves of and kind of put it all into a repeatable template for myself so that every time I click new and I get a new template set up for a new video, then I know that I want to have core deliverables that I give everybody. I want to hook them with some kind of interesting statement in the beginning. I want to explain that I'm the right person to be making this video. I set up a challenge that we're up against today. Like, what is it that we need to figure out? What's the problem we need to to solve, then I take us on a little bit of a journey to try and figure that out. What did I have to do, or what might we have to think about whenever we're figuring out this problem? Then we have that third act of the structure of typical storytelling, which is the conflict resolution. Let's come to some kind of conclusion at the end and say, we solved it, or all the attempts that we made didn't solve it and we still suck, or whatever the resolution is of the video. And then typically I thank people for being there and mention something if I want to be a shill and like sell something or not, like I am today in this video. Buy my online class, buy my merch. I wonder if you can have like really silly merch made. Like what if I just sold underwear with like investing charts on it or something? It's another problem for another day. But the TLDR version of all that is to say you need a consistent digital templating system because it goes with you everywhere then. If you have an idea in the shower, you can jump out and write down part of your script or part of the video idea, get the memory out of your head instead of having to try and hold on to that or find that scrap piece of paper, get the idea down, and then you can come back and actually finish scripting it out on a full-size computer or put it on a teleprompter or do anything else that you need to manipulate it really easily because it's digital. I know it's sexy to use pen and paper and it's very retro and interesting and tactile and satisfying in ASMR, but that's not the best way to be as productive as possible. And then part 4 of today's video, speaking of productivity, is to do post-production as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Now to do that, I have a very specific kind of pathway that I follow whenever I edit videos and how I handle that data. I create a folder for each video, and within the folder is all the media that I need that is proprietary to that video. Then one of my other SSDs here is just a B-roll folder of music and cutscenes and other B-roll that I've filmed in the past, so that doesn't need to be in that folder. And then once I've got a layer of audio and video put together, then I export that and I use another software called Recut. Now Recut's amazing because it cuts out all of the pauses in your speech. So instead of me having some natural pauses in my speech, maybe stopping to think for a little while and gaze off into the distance, it doesn't let that happen because it analyzes the waveforms of your speech and it cuts out any of those silences for you. And so it might take you hours of cutting out pauses and uhs and coughs and sneezes and whatever other bodily noises you might make whenever you're making a video. This cuts out all those silences, which then exaggerates and isolates those funky little sounds you make. Like if I did achoo, that now is one little isolated sound on my timeline in my editor, and I can very easily select that and delete it, and I'm on to the next thing. And so it expedites your editing hugely. I also edit directly on SSDs, so you've got to have an SSD that's fast enough to do that. But the beauty of that is that then you're not limited to the space of your laptop. You can also be very portable. It's very, very handy. And then when it comes to editing, you have got to learn keyboard shortcuts. Every NLE has keyboard shortcuts, whether you're using Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, some other goofy program if you use something else. I've used LumaFusion for quite a while. I know those have keyboard shortcuts if you're actually using the keyboard with it. But the more you're familiar with keyboard shortcuts, the more editing just flows together. The less dependent you are on a mouse, the faster you're going to go. And no, you don't need to know every single keyboard shortcut in the world to be efficient. But the important thing is that the main things that you're using, you know the keyboard shortcuts for. And if you don't like where they are on the keyboard, then you can just remap them to be whatever keybind you want. So like, for example, there was one that was like these brackets, and I didn't like having to do like shift bracket. That just felt clunky to me. And so I changed it to A and S. Back and forth, A&S. It's like clip the end of the clip off, clip the beginning of the clip off. Super easy just to go back and forth with A&S. Yes, it's painful to learn in the beginning. It's a nightmare. I hated learning them, but now that I know them, it is an absolute lifesaver. So don't skimp on your keyboard shortcuts. Then when it comes to posting videos and doing the whole back end work of social media, if somehow you watch this video and you don't realize there's a bunch of work to the back end of social media, then, you know, you're an odd duck. You're an interesting person. Thank you for watching this long. But for those of us that do make videos for social media, you realize you've got to fill out things like descriptions and thumbnails and when things are going to post and what hashtags to use and how to kind of categorize it in the realm of all the rest of the videos you make. Do you put it in a playlist? Do you not? Do you cut it for shorts? What do you do? There's just a lot of decisions and work that need to be made on the back end. And the more that you can templatize that and duplicate that, the easier your life will be. You don't need to start over every video you make. Have a little Google Docs file, copy and paste your description into every video, make it really easy and consistent, and be done with it. Then the last piece of advice that I have that basically applies to almost everything in life, but especially to video production because that's what we're talking about today, is don't major in the minors. So don't sweat things like your hashtags and what kind of music you have in the background, and should you have the camera angle, you know, this way or that way. Like those are such minor things that it's not going to make a huge bottom line impact for you. What we need to be really, really good at is connecting with people and giving them a message that they're actually looking for, and also getting them to be there to your video in the first place through titles and thumbnails. If you were nothing but an expert in titles and thumbnails and you were terrible at the rest of the video, you would at least potentially have a lot of people come through the door and say, hey, this seemed interesting. Maybe you should deliver a little bit better on the promise you made through the title and the thumbnail. But if we're ignoring the title and the thumbnail for color grading and perfecting your sound with some new microphone that's $400 and some silly stuff like that, we're missing the point. point. We're missing the boat. It's like with me with marathon training right now. If I'm like counting the number of electrolytes I drink every day and not going out and running or not coming home and recovering enough, then I'm missing 80% of what's actually going to make a difference for me and get me the result that I need because I'm focused on the minor things. We got to stop that. We've got to have our priority list of what's the most important thing and then go down from there. If you have extra time, sure, play with a color grade for a while or do something else silly, but focus on the things that communicate value to your audience the most first, the things that are genuine to you, because that's your competitive advantage is you, your own personality, good, bad, ugly, weird, whatever it is. That's the one unique thing that we have to bring to the table is ourselves. And I think more and more as this becomes a norm thing to do, like to make videos for the internet, and also as AI becomes more and more the norm, there's like this baseline of really bland, boring, crappy videos that all seem kind of the same. So your weirdness gives you the chance to propel yourself out of that normie mud and actually stand out as somebody who's worth listening to or worth potentially connecting with because you're actually vulnerable enough to show yourself. So be weird. And on that note, I've got to go because my ankle is throbbing. I just ran 4 miles up and down a little road in front of a Chipotle trying to get the Strava segment so that I can potentially win free Chipotle for a year, even though I don't stand a chance. These guys have done it like 800 times and I've done it like 12 times, but I just ran. I'm sore. I'm going to put my foot up. See you guys in the next one. Bye. Also, normally I make personal finance videos, so if you want that, subscribe. Otherwise, see you later.